The main task of this honorable House, for which it was conceived, is to establish a national budget to define what the state does with taxpayers' money. The second reason I am presenting here today is because I come to propose a budget project that is diametrically different from what we are used to.
Not only different, but the most radically different in our history. And I have learned firsthand that the deeper the change, the greater the effort must be to fight for it.
Last Sunday, Javier Milei made waves in Congress with his speech about the 2025 budget, laying out a bold plan for an unbreakable fiscal rule aimed at hitting a sustainable zero deficit for Argentina. This is huge news, especially since Argentina recently recorded a fiscal surplus for the first time in nearly 16 years. That's a sign the economy might finally be turning a corner. Plus, inflation rates have also begun to decrease from their peak earlier this year, and the exchange rate has stabilized at around 1,280 pesos per dollar. Milei was clear the fiscal deficit is the root of many of Argentina's economic problems.
Do you know what's the root cause of the deficit? The reason why there's a deficit? The politicians' endless compulsion for public spending, which knows no budget restrictions. Because it's only by spending money that isn't theirs that they can make deals for themselves, their clients, and their friends. The worst way to spend money is to spend other people's money on others, which is precisely what the state does. Today, something that needs to be clear once and for all, there's nothing, absolutely nothing more disempowering for the average Argentine than the fiscal deficit. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing, that enriches politicians more than the fiscal deficit.
His first key rule is all about keeping the fiscal balance intact, no matter who's in charge. The commitment to maintaining a zero deficit remains. This could change how Argentina handles its finances and boost everyone's confidence in the economy. On his second rule, he talked about adjusting state spending according to how the economy is doing, instead of throwing more cash around when times are good and then racking up debt when things get tough. He wants a more balanced and sustainable approach. If the economy is booming, great. The government will cut taxes. If it slows down, spending will be reduced instead of digging ourselves into a hole and accumulating deficits.
It's that 70% of public spending goes to various types of social spending. This, which for years has been hailed as a success across the entire political spectrum, indicates nothing more than a humanitarian tragedy, because it means that more than 20 million Argentinians cannot sustain themselves without the help of the state, help that is based on robbing part of society with taxes.
This kind of thinking could lead to smarter money management and less dependence on borrowing. The third rule involves returning excess revenue to citizens through tax cuts. More money in people's pockets will lead to increased spending and investment, which might even encourage more folks to get into cryptocurrencies. With extra cash, people might feel more comfortable exploring digital assets, making crypto a bigger part of their lives and integrating it into the economy. And he didn't just stop at numbers. Milei used historical context to explain the current situation. He pointed out that after decades of restrictions on individual freedoms by the political class, he believes it's time to restrict the state's excesses. He's determined to change the game when it comes to government spending and how the government interacts with its citizens. In a clear explanation, Milei described the fiscal deficit as the huevo de la serpiente, the egg of the snake, pinpointing it as the main cause of Argentina's economic collapse. He emphasized that the deficit leads to debt, which leads to printing more money, causing inflation, and ultimately resulting in poverty. He insists that understanding this relationship is crucial for the public to grasp the true causes of inflation, attributing it not to greedy businesses, but to excessive state spending and mismanagement. When it comes to putting these ideas into action, Milei proposed a new way to think about budgeting. First, figure out how much needs to be saved before deciding how much can be spent. This is a big shift from the traditional method of planning expenses first. His vision includes a primary surplus big enough to cover debt interest, and any extra money would go back to cutting taxes for citizens, making the economy more competitive. Javier Milei's Unbreakable Fiscal rule has three main components. First, keep fiscal balance safe from political interference permanently. Second, ensure the government handles economic ups and downs instead of piling the burden on the private sector with higher taxes. And third, make sure any excess revenue goes back to the people through tax cuts. These proposals represent a significant challenge and commitment for Milei's government. If he can pull this off, it could mean sustainable zero deficits not just during his time in office, but for future leaders as well. This kind of stability is crucial to avoid falling back into the historic cycle of deficits that has haunted Argentina for decades.
And we do this because we are not going to be complicit or deceive the Argentine people by adopting a populist measure. The only context in which we will accept discussing an increase in spending is when the request comes with an explicit explanation of what budget line needs to be reduced to cover it. If not, it will be vetoed. This, which should be common sense, seems like sacrilege said in this House, the place from which all the populist measures that have ruined this country have originated. The paradoxical thing is that they always come with enormous support, because it is a tactical rule in Argentine politics that the more votes a Congress project has, the worse it is for society.
If you're finding this deep dive into Milei's speech helpful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We've got loads more content coming your way that explores the crossroads of economics and crypto. In conclusion, Milei's ambitious plan could lead to a more stable economy, opening doors not just for traditional finance, but also for the cryptocurrency world. A more stable economic environment means investors can focus on growth rather than dodging financial pitfalls. Thanks for tuning in to this breakdown of Milei's speech and its implications for Argentina's economy and your crypto investments. And don't forget to stay curious and stay hodling.